Assalamu
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah once again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulina Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So we have an extraordinary sister, mashallah, with us. Her name is Khaula, and she's going to be speaking to you about how her journey to Islam, inshallah. Sometimes we take our religion for granted. So there's a beautiful discussion in one of the books by Martin Links, who became Abu Bakr Sirajuddin. And he had an argument with a fellow Muslim, and that other Muslim was a little insulting to this new Muslim. I don't know what the nature of the discussion was, but Martin Links talks about this. And so he was having this dispute, and the Muslim who was born Muslim said something a little insulting. And so Martin Links, who had just become Muslim, told him, be patient with us, because you have been a Muslim by chance. I'm a Muslim by choice. A lot of us are Muslim by chance because our parents were Muslims, right? So I want, with that as a discussion, as a backdrop, I want to turn it over to Sister Khaula, who's going to be speaking to you, inshallah. So please pay attention with your complete focus as to what she says, inshallah. Khaula, please go ahead.
alaikum, Ali and children. Thank you. I guess I'll just start a little bit about myself. I'm a sister. I've been Muslim for a little over a year. I reverted October 31st last year, 2020. I'm from Springfield, born and raised. I actually saw the mosque at where it's located right now. I actually saw it getting built as a child. I always thought it was really pretty. Alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim now. And when I was, Ali, do you want the video on or not?
That would be great. That would be fantastic. The video on would be wonderful. Most of our speakers have the video on, so.
There we go. And growing up, I was really confused about religion. I didn't have a horrible, terrible sob story, sad childhood, but I had a really rough. My great grandfather was a Southern Baptist Christian minister, actually, which is very, very, very strict type of Christianity. And my mother, because of essentially Southern Baptist Church, as she grew up, she became an atheist. And my father, he was in and out of our lives. He unfortunately was a drug addict and alcoholic, but he was also a holy roller. So he would be overdosing on bad substances, taking too many, while he was talking about how great Jesus was. So there's part of my family that was very, very strict Christian. My father, who was Christian, but also an addict. And then my mother, who was an atheist. And I had all of these different mixed messages about different religion. And I always thought Jesus was pretty cool. Alhamdulillah, Isa. But it was just sort of, no, that's too much. I'm not looking into religion because I heard too many different messages about what it wasn't what it wasn't. And it kind of threw me into a little bit of just confusion generally growing up. So I stepped aside from religion altogether. Didn't really think a whole lot about it. I was very spiritual. I believed in God, but I didn't really know who or what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I didn't know what he was. And I was pretty much, I wasn't an atheist, I just didn't practice anything. And my first introduction to Islam, I'm sure you kids know about this, but was after 9/11, September 11th, the attacks in New York. Um, I hadn't even really heard that much about Islam until it just wasn't a thing. We know American students really don't talk about it a whole lot until after these attacks, and then it was this big bad scary Islam. What is this? What are these Muslim, or who are these Muslims? What is this Islam? I just knew the changes in people around me regarding folks that might have been immigrated or were the children of immigrants. And I decided to look into Islam itself just to sort of familiarize myself with it because these were good people I knew that were now getting attacked. So I looked into Islam and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the big, bad, scary Islam. Like, this is what we keep getting told. We shouldn't accept. And I'm like, no, this is a good religion. These are good people. And I didn't think about really turning to Islam um, at that time, but I at least like learned about it. Um, Shortly after, I um, I completely lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Um, Shortly after, I joined a lot of the anti-war movements that popped up with Iraq and Afghanistan. I was vehemently opposed to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I learned a little bit more about Islam then. And just like piecemeal, learned more and more about the religion. Again, I wasn't following any religion. And I was just, aside from the political activism and stuff like that, I was very, very lost. Um, had, like I said, unstable background. My father was in and out of the picture, drugs and alcohol. And I didn't have a lot of family support when it came to school or a career or any of, the typical things that families give their children. Your mom and your dad love you so much, so they want to make sure that you get your homework done, make sure that you have skills that are going to make you succeed when you're an adult because they love you. And I didn't get a whole lot of that. So when I hit high school, I moved out when I was 17. Um, and it was a whole bunch of stuff went on. And I was very sad all the time. And I was very, very depressed. I almost followed in my father's footsteps when it came to drugs and alcohols. Children don't do it, not because it's haram, but because it's horrible for you. It's bad. Just don't do it. Um, and then I kind of got out of that little depressive spell and just grew up a little bit, got older, and really started working full time. And I met a man who was an atheist, and we ended up getting married. I had my two beautiful children, alhamdulillah. And it turned out because I really wasn't taught what a good man should be, that relationship was really abusive. And I'm not saying all of this to scare you kids. It was just a sort of life. These things happen. But and it was really hard. I became a stay-at-home mom. I know a lot of you guys have stay-at-home parents. And I did that until I decided, after a while, after having a lot of struggles and ups and downs and beautiful things too. But after all of these trying times, I just felt like part of myself was missing. I felt like something in my life was completely missing. And eventually, when things got very, very bad with my marriage, with career, with my children, trying to figure out how I would be able to support myself and them, um, I started praying and praying and praying and praying, and I knew that there wasn't a whole lot in my life that I could do. But I just started praying for the first time, and was, I think, in 2018 or so. So it had been about a year. And I knew that I wanted to start looking into religions again. And I already knew quite a bit about Christianity. And there were some parts of it that just didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand the Holy Trinity. I didn't understand original sin. I was like, how can a baby be born of sin? That makes zero sense to me. Um, and small little things like that. I looked into like Gnosticism and Buddhism and Hinduism and all sorts of, I looked into everything. If it was a religion, I looked into it. And then finally, um, right when the pandemic hit, personally, on top of the pandemic, just my own life um, got even worse. And I was reading, um, what was it? It was a book on poetry, Islamic poetry, like early Islamic poetry. And then I was like, why don't I look more into Islam? I know a little bit about it. I've looked up on it. I really like what I've read so far. So I just started reading up even more on Islam. And the more I started reading about it, the more I liked. So I would read more, and the more I read, the more I liked. A lot of the spirituality in Islam already aligned with some of my beliefs. And then I finally started, I found a Quran online. There are actually a couple different Qurans you can find online. So I just started reading the Quran over the internet during the pandemic. And got to Surah al-Dua, the end of that one. It was, and he guided you, and you were lost and he guided you. And I remember reading that surah, Surah al-Dua, and I was crying and crying and crying and crying. And I read it over and over and over again. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was just like, I think I'm Muslim. And her response was, well, that makes sense. And I'm like, how does that make sense? It was like, wow, you've been drawn to Islam for a decade. It makes sense. And there's just a lot of cultural differences. You know, people who are raised in the religion, they have so much more knowledge than you do. I did not know that when you enter a mosque for like Juma, that you're supposed to pray 2 rakat until today. I've been Muslim for a year and I just found that out. So there's a lot to learn in this small amount of time. Um, but when I was serious about possibly looking into Islam at that point, and it was last summer. And for a little bit, I went to school. Actually, it was college. I decided to go back to school. I wanted to finish my education. Um, but I went to school in Fairfield, Iowa. It was Maharishi International University. And I absolutely hated the college, but that's besides the point. But there I met a group. One of the guys was from Pakistan. The rest of the guys were from Egypt. And we were in the student center and we were talking about language. And I was talking about Arabic. And I was like, I really like Arabic. I think it's a beautiful language. And one of the guys was like, well, what do you know? What Arabic do you know? And I'm like, barely any, like mish, like mish quiz. And like, no, what do you know? And I'm like, okay, I know mashallah and inshallah. He said, are you Muslim? I said no. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, no. um, and the group of guys that just kind of adopted me, they're like, we can work with I don't know, like we can work with I don't know. And finally I asked them, I was like, hey, do you mind if I just ask you a bunch of questions about Islam? They're like, of course, feel free to ask anything. And I had a bunch of random questions. A lot of it were more about practicing it. just clarifications on certain things. And it was, let me see, that was August. So 2 months later, um, uh, I had a car, so we were driving to Des Moines to go to a halal market. And I looked at him and I'm like, guys, how do you become Muslim? Like, what do you actually have to do? What do you have to do to actually become Muslim? And they're like, you just have to take Shahada, because there was no mosque. There were no scholars in Fairfield, Iowa. It was in the middle of Iowa. There was pretty much nothing there. Um, and what I didn't know how you actually became Muslim. They said you had to take Shahada, and looked that up, and I said Shahada in my car on the way to a halal market in Des Moines. And then we got waffles because I found out that they had been in the United States and had never had a waffle before. And I'm like, I don't agree to that. You guys need waffles. So yeah, I took Shahada. Um, it was on Halloween. So yeah, it's been like becoming Muslim was not difficult for me. Um, Once I got some things kind of clarified, like the religion itself was not difficult for me. Practicing has been difficult because you have to learn Arabic, you need to memorize all of these prayers. You get worried that you're not going to do something right. And that is something that a lot of people who are raised Muslim do have a little bit of advantage over. Is you have people like Ramadan. Um, I'd never done Ramadan before. I had no clue what I was doing. I tried, um, did my best, but it was just so the past year or before the year was just learning about Islam and getting a good education, teaching myself about it. And then this past year has been more on learning how to be Muslim. So, and yeah.
Oh, that was that was amazing. Yeah, I didn't even know all of these details. That's pretty extraordinary. Are you still in contact with that group of guys?
Um, some of the guys I am, not all of them, because they were very respectful,
Hmm.
like hyper respectful. And I am non-Maram, so some of them were like, "Sister, love you, but yeah, we're not supposed to talk. I don't plan on marrying you." And I'm like, "Cool, that's 100% okay."
Right.
Um, some of them just out of respect we've lost touch with, and some of them I would consider good friends.
Okay.
They did a lot of checking up on me
Oh,
during
wonderful.
Ramadan to see how I've been doing, or still able to reach out and be like, "Hey, real quick, Muhammad, what is this?"
Right.
And oh,
Right.
blah. So we still talk on occasion, but
Right.
not very often. So
Right. How has been the response of your family members? I don't know if you have a brother or a sister, or I know your mom, but
yeah,
how has that response been?
really haven't had to worry about my father. He
Right.
passed away in
Correct.
2010,
Right.
unfortunately. My brother, I keep trying to get to come to Juma, and I almost got him to come, but it was really kind of weird because the family members that I thought would be the most open to it were actually the most resistant, and the family that I thought I would have issues with were the ones who embraced it. My mom, like I mentioned, she is an atheist. She's a hard-lined atheist, and but she's also talked about, equality and tolerance and respecting people's differences, including the religious belief of Muslims, until her daughter became a Muslim. Um, and then suddenly it was arguments and, well, what about this? Well, in this country, and I suddenly kind of had to become an expert in Middle Eastern politics, and I'm like, I don't live in Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan, or it's
Right.
just I don't live there.
Right.
She kind of it's getting better.
Oh,
That's
wonderful.
we're still working on it.
Sure. It's
We're
a
still
journey, right? It's a
working.
long journey.
Yeah. And then one of my cousins, my cousin Sherry, I thought that she would hate it. She's still a very strict Southern Baptist. She lives in the Gulf Coast. Like all of that family is in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi.
Right.
And I thought that that would practically destroy our relationship. And if anything, it's actually brought us closer once I was able to kind of explain, there's the Old Testament, which is Judaism, there's the New Testament, which is Christianity, then there's the Final Testament, which is the Quran.
Right.
Um, and I was able to kind of give her religious comparisons. It was like, cousin, we worship the same God, we believe in the same prophets. It was just mine worships a little bit differently. I'm not going to say or tell her that like Islam is better, but there's just sort of it's similar. It's similar. And once she kind of found that out, she was like, "So you still like Jesus?" And I was like, "I was never a Christian, but yeah, Jesus is cool." Obviously, clearly. And now she's sending me stuff. Like, well, the Virgin Mary was veiled and you're veiled, so that's okay. And she's like sending me little like roomy quotes with like women wearing hijab, and I'm
Sure.
like, oh, cousin, bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you.
Right.
And my brother, he's fine with it. Like, he's just sort of like, okay. I think most of my family thought that this would kind of be a little bit of a phase,
Hmm.
and they're very surprised that it is actually not a
Right.
phase. Like, no, I'm too old for phases. So I'm
Right.
not a teacher.
Well, there's an estrangement with Islam, right? There's an alienation. Somehow there's an alien faith when they know that we are worshiping the same God, the God of Abraham and Moses and Jesus. In Mark 15:34, Jesus says, Eli, Eli, why have you forsaken me? And we say Allah. And you even mentioned the veil. Well, that's in First Corinthians 11, uh, 5 and 6.
Hmm.
You go to First Corinthians chapter 11, verses 5 and 6. uh, it talks about the importance of the veil, importance of the hijab.
Yeah.
And in fact, it goes even further, much further than Islam, right? So First Corinthians chapter 11, verse 5 and 6 actually say that if a woman does not cover her head, then it is better if she were to have her head shaven, you
Hmm.
know? And so, and of course, that's in the New Testament. That's not even in the Old Testament. And likewise, if you talk about the fact that Isa alayhi salam in the Bible is actually proclaims himself as a prophet of God on
Hmm.
multiple times. He declares himself as a prophet, and he actually prays at different times in the course of the day. And he's actually prostrating because the Bible says he fell on his face and prayed to God. So
Yeah.
once they find out some of the things that we do, that we are actually practicing the teachings of Jesus even more than them.
Yeah. And the bit about Jesus prostrating,
Mhm,
a lot of people asked me, was like, well, when did you know you were Muslim? Like, when did you, even if you hadn't taken Shahada, like,
mhm,
when was the definitive moment that you knew you were Muslim? And it was the first time, and I did not know the Arabic. It was a mess. I did not even complete a full rocket,
mhm.
but it was literally falling on my knees in prostration,
Wow.
praying to Allah.
Allah.
Um, and just the feeling I got, like literally the sense of peace and ease that I got uh, from Salah. And my prayers are still kind of interesting on occasion. Like my brain will just like forget the Arabic, and then I'm like, okay, we're switching to English. May Allah make it easier for all of us.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was one of the like. It was like, yeah, this is it. This is what we're doing now.
MashaAllah.
I have a question.
Yes, sweetie, go ahead.
So, besides your family, did you tell anyone? Did you inspire anyone else to become Muslim or Christian?
Yes. Like, yeah, beautiful question, beautiful question. No one personally. I have actually lost in my day-to-day life, in the people that I've known. Um, I've actually lost quite a few friends. Especially when I started wearing hijab. Like a friend of mine that I've had for about 15 years. We don't talk anymore because of Islam, and it hurts sometimes. But when Allah closes one door, He opens another, and you revert, you become so passionate about Islam, and there was a young man named Billy who is a mutual friend of ours with a friend of mine named Olivia. And Olivia messaged me, and she's like, I would talk to him more, but I literally do not have the time. Would you mind discussing Islam with a friend of mine who's interested in it? And I'm like, yes, of course, no issues. So we've been talking for maybe about 2 or 3 months now. And a lot of the biggest thing that reverts, like before they take Shahada, they get scared of is how to actually practice it. Not even, what the Quran teaches or the spirituality, but like how do you pray? How do you do this? How do you fast? And it's been 2 months of basically telling him, brother, you don't have to be perfect. No, there's not a single person on this planet that is perfect, that is going to be the perfect Muslim. That's not going to happen. And if someone thinks they are the perfect Muslim, they're probably no, they're incorrect. And it's just been kind of reassuring him over and over again. You already you do you believe in Shahada? Like, do you believe in there is no God worthy of praise except for Allah, or worship, but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger and the final messenger? Well, yeah, but I was like, okay, there is no but. It's yes or no question. Um, and just he's like, well, I can't fast during Ramadan. I have diabetes. Yes, you're correct. You cannot fast during Ramadan because you have diabetes, and you should not fast during Ramadan because you have diabetes. That will kill you. And just sort of checking all the boxes of things that he was worried about. And I think it was about 2 weeks ago he took Shahada. Like he finally accepted Islam, and it's absolutely beautiful. And um, a couple instances, mostly online, not so much here in Springfield, but I've either in Springfield at least opened up more of a conversation about Islam, and specifically what it means to be American Muslim, because that's not necessarily a concept, it's not an idea that a lot of people think about. What is an American Muslim, regardless of where you're born or where your parents were born. Um, so what does it mean to be an American Muslim? So there have been a few people that I brought to Islam, and it's a joy. It's an absolute joy to me.
That's extraordinary. That's amazing. We have time for maybe, what time is it right now?
6:33.
6:33. Oh, we better probably end because the kids have to. Thank you so much, Khaula. Just share with us one thing, one additional thing. Why did you choose the name Khaula?
Oh, Khaula bin Al Ansar.
Or the other one?
When it was let me think. When did I? It was a couple months ago. I like my name. My name is Valerie. It's a good name. There's nothing specifically wrong with that name. It means brave. Um, there's nothing wrong with that name, but I had so much pain and sadness attached to that name. people that knew me that I didn't want to know anymore, memories, so on and so forth. So, and I know people took Islamic names, and I was just reading different biographies one day of some of the first companions, and uh, I ran across Hawla bin al-Anzar, um, and I was reading up on her. She was one of the first companions to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She was a military genius. She was a warrior. She was also a healer. She was a medic, and she was just an absolutely amazing, inspirational woman, which I think a lot of the girls need. They need to hear about those strong women, especially in today's society. So yeah, I was reading about her, and I was like, well, I was already thinking about um, changing my name, so I decided on that.
Thank you, mashallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for sharing. One of the great Sahabiya, one of the whose story is preserved actually in the Quran. So alhamdulillah. Beautiful choice, mashallah. Jazakallah khairan. Everyone, just we have to go to our respective classes that are gonna start in I think 4 minutes or 5 minutes, inshallah. And we will see each other not next Friday, but the Friday afterwards, inshallah ta'ala. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
Jazakallah.
Thank you so much. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, guys.
Alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Bye.
Allah Hafiz.